I don't know. It's coming up fast. I don't know.
Because I know that probably the staff wants to take off and have a party or something.
So when does session go to exactly? Is it?
No idea.
I don't either, actually. I know it's only got another couple, another 3
Yeah,
weeks.
it's quick. It's coming up.
It is.
Good morning, everybody.
in the green room, great.
Back in the green room. Here we go again, 8:30.
Well, time is as
And
it
here's
is.
legislation- Wait, I can't even speak. Legislative session.
No, we got to start out the green room by, paying homage to Robert Platshorn and Bobby Tuna, who did pass on April 1st. Yeah, he did. But listen to the unique story behind this. And, once again, cannabis warrior from here in Florida that served 30 years in jail, 30 years, got out, Ruta, April 1st. Okay. 15 years to the day before he died.
Oh, wow.
So he served 30 years in prison and then had a pretty remarkable 15 years really after, where he really focused on the education, of seniors about cannabis, had the Silver Tour. I was really honored to share the stage with him. So I really didn't want to start the show without, really acknowledging that, because that is time. That's time passing, Listen, he was almost 80, which I was really happy to hear. I thought he was a little bit younger. So, 80's a pretty good run. But as everybody knows, I'm going to be 67 next month.
It's a baby in Florida.
It is anymore. I know.
And like you listen to people's ages and you're like,
You do.
That was like nothing.
And I get inspired. Listen, I get inspired by my patients every day, some of whom I've had now in the practice for over 6 years.
Right.
And as I look at charts and I look at ages, and I know everybody else is aging but me somehow. I don't know how that goes down.
I don't either.
But what a crazy session. And it's funny because, Don and I always talk about, the backdrop for the show every week. And, once again, we're in the legislative season and a session, and we could surely have guests every week, but the green room goes so fast to that extent. We need this therapeutic time.
I do. I have my gun. Does anybody need it? You can just borrow it.
No, listen.
You don't need to know how to shoot.
There's a unique thing that happened this week, and it'll be a great trivia question someday. What do Senator Leader Lauren Book, now leader of the Democratic Party, Nikki Fried, okay, and former President Donald Trump actually have in common? They were on the same day. Within the same 24-hour period of time.
Wow.
I think Nikki and Lauren may have been booked the night before or something, but within the same 24-hour period of time.
Crazy.
What we're talking about, everybody, and listen, I think Nikki's going to be able to join us. I think Nikki's going to be able to join us next week. She's way too busy this week, but we have a request in because, listen, they did pass, and has the governor signed it yet? We don't know because he's signing things behind closed doors.
What's a concealed weapon?
No, concealed.
Not when he did.
No, but 6-week abortion ban. I don't think he signed yet. So listen, session, everybody. If you want to talk about tick, and what the caption on what's gone on already and what's going to go on. What's gone on already is that the governor's already signed bills, and I think we talked about last week's insurance. Change reform bill, right? But since then, what it is, it's permitless carry. Okay, it's not open carry. And listen, the NRA is angry because they wanted full open carry, and they've actually claimed that they're not going to stop until they get full open carry. But the governor, behind the closed doors of his office with the NRA and a few, members of the he signed the bill. For once again, permitless, I call it brainless carry, quite frankly. I mean, everybody should have some training and
know how to safety, at least something like.
So is he ultimately liable because he
signed
the bill for any deaths?
That's actually a really good constitutional and legal question, because really, if he signs it and somebody decides to just go get a gun and open fire in a school, God forbid, in Florida, which happened, or anywhere, is he liable?
But there's other things that have gone on also. So they've also pushed very hard on the trans, treatment, all the issues that are going up there, that now it's literally illegal for a doctor, who can be jailed for it, I think, for actually assisting, trans
they're under
youth.
18 or something.
Actually, the questions have been asked. What if a family moves to Florida with a teenager who's in transition? Okay,
you don't do that.
Well, no, I mean, it's starting to affect people's lives.
It is. I would just say,
and let me tell you, so will this 6-week abortion ban. Okay, you tell me that if you're a college student, or a high school student, and you're a progressive female, brilliant, okay, and you're looking at various colleges,
You're not
you
gonna
may
wanna
make a
go to
decision not to
Florida.
come to Florida.
Seriously, I think
People are
there's
going to leave the
a
state.
lot of people.
And once again, this is emergency doctor speaking, okay? And kudos to Senator Book and Nikki Fried, who sat in the circle, okay, with the protesters
got arrested.
and got arrested, okay? And
Just so that you know, Nikki Fried, she ran for governor in the state of Florida, and she was actually the commissioner of agriculture for 4 years in the state of Florida. So she now is the head of the Democratic Party in the state of Florida, and kudos to her for, you know.
and I wish we had the image, Don, and, you know, one of these days we'll pull these things up before and actually, you know, do like a news show kind of. But Nikki, you know, listen, it was kind of blatant what she wrote.
Yeah.
Just freaking vote,
Just
okay,
freaking
right?
vote.
We're a family show here.
Yes, we are.
Listen,
We're
and listen, Speaker Renner, you have to look it up. Okay, he was on Twitter yesterday, a 2-minute little discussion about how elections matter and how that's why what's happening in Florida right now, because they're fulfilling the will of the people that voted them in. There's Republican supermajorities, you know, and we've watched, you know, Representative Rudman, Dr. Rudman, who is the new representative of the House, pushing, you know, an agenda.
Own agenda.
And well, listen, he says it's because his constituents sent him there to do this. So I say right back to Speaker Renner, you're right. You're right. Elections have consequences. And I say, watch what happens when you go with this 6-week abortion bill. Watch what happens when you push back on people that are just trying to live the most free lives that they can in a very complicated 2023.
But it's going backwards. And I
Go
think
ahead,
that's
Rita.
I think, no, wait a minute, before I start anything, also there is somebody that is very close to Sarasota politics. A huge condolence to the family of Commissioner Nancy Dietert. She dedicated most of her life. She
had her office right here.
Yeah,
In the
she represented the Venice area. And
I'm so sorry for that.
yeah, so shout out to her family, condolences and prayers, and to the memory of Nancy Dietert. She may have been on opposing sides, but you know, she served our community very well up in Tallahassee. She was our state representative.
She was passionate. She
And
had her
lived in
passion.
politics her whole life. So she really was, and she represented the best she could. So again, prayers and condolences to the
Thanks
family.
for that, Ruth.
So yeah, because I just wanted to mention Nancy Dietert, because she did dedicate over 25 years of her life to public service. So that deserves a big shout out. But no, so going back to everything else, it is sad that we're going backwards, and it's going back to like the 1950s. And for women, like, this is the only thing I find interesting also. So all these elected representatives.
Only one thing that you find, no, I'm kidding.
No, but this is what I find amazing, because when you take a poll, Republican women are much more pro-choice than pro-life. And again, whether they are pro-life, they want it with like a longer time period, because at 6 weeks, I'm sorry, most women don't even know they're pregnant. So to have that as a bill, it's just ridiculous. And I think the Republican women would not have voted the way that the legislators voted. So, or, you know, I just don't think that this is
well in the Senate.
People. I don't.
In the Senate, the bill's being sponsored by Senator Grahl, who is a, you know, Republican female, you know, senator.
Yeah.
And it's
No,
listen,
but the women, I mean, statistically speaking, straight across the whole state of Florida, Republican women are much more pro-choice than they think.
but the discussion it equates, you know, legal health care for women, okay,
Well,
with murder. No, hang on, with murder, because she stood on the Senate floor and she said we've murdered more people, however many children in Florida over the past number of years.
But yet, listen, like this,
and it's not murder, it's health.
But this is what pisses me off. Here they are speaking about the murder of with abortions for women that, you know, had extenuating circumstances, yet in the same breath, the governor is signing open carry, like permitless carry. So in the same sense, you can go shoot somebody and you're okay with open fire in a schoolroom, obviously, but yet the woman's body which should belong to her and what she does is up for grabs. And I think that's ridiculous.
That's a very confusing time. You know, it's like pick and choose.
What side you're on. If you're pro-life, then you should be against guns. If you're pro-life, I'm sorry, it's something that takes a life. So if you're so into that, then you be consistent, you know.
It's just a very confusing time of what's free and
It's
what's
not.
not free. And
People like to say like, oh, Florida's free. The Republican Party wants more freedom. No, they don't. Look at the legislation. They're getting more and more restricted. They're taking more and more rights away from people.
Tiger
need
Bay
to-
today,
Oh my
discussion
goodness.
about new college, of course.
To Frank Alcock, a former campaign team member of mine. Frank is going to be addressing, he's a longtime professor at New College, and he will be defending the stance of keeping New College as a liberal college and what has just happened. A friend of ours of the show, Sydney Gruters, just got placed into the role of procurement for New College. So they're switching over who's representing New College. And for those that don't know, it's a liberal arts college. It was very liberal. It's known for that. The students always felt at ease. There was a lot of more racial equality. They are taking the classrooms. They're switching it from, anything with race. They're trying to eliminate.
Well, everything, yeah, diverse, equality, and inclusion. Who doesn't agree with that?
And
Come on, I don't
like,
get
the
it.
thing is,
It's
they're talking
weird
about
to me.
indoctrination of college students. First of all, if you're starting to replace people with people that you are placing, hello.
I call it
doing
indoctrination in a gun
indoctrination.
culture.
Doing
In a
indoctrination.
gun culture, when you take
Community.
your Christmas photos with your entire family holding, AK, whatever they are. So it's a weird time, is what it
It's a
is,
really weird time. But for the fact that they're going into schoolrooms, the fact that they're like, I feel like it's an occupation, like where like literally somebody like is occupying the United States and they're kicking out the books and they're replacing people like mindset, and they want their own mindset only. And it's a very scary time. I think people need to wake up. It's not
Now, how
funny,
can we
it's
be in the
scary.
green room, let's see, for about 10 minutes and not recognize the fact that former President Trump, of course, got arrested. Oh, we did. We talked about him in the context with Nikki and Lauren. But listen, to me, to see him sitting in that courtroom, okay, by himself,
Yeah,
no
very
family.
lonely.
Where's Melania?
Oh, I don't blame them. I'd be like, run for the hills.
And I think the most bizarre thing to me, and once again, Don's, but behind the, in the producer spot over there, and I refer to Don because, listen, I like to look at this country right now as half generational change. So Ruta, you and I are half a generation. I think between you and Don, that's another half a generation. But to me, it's how can you look at somebody like Trump? And what is bizarre to me is that nobody's not acknowledging that he didn't pay off Stormy Daniels or the other one, or that these things happened. It's a question of whether you care about it or not, whether that's appropriate behavior for somebody that you want to lead our country. Okay. And my answer has always been no. I need more. I need more from that person.
But did you see the
Do you guys?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Who doesn't?
For the last-
Where did it change?
The last
What generation doesn't? Who's been so hoodwinked? It's those that have. It's those that have what they already have already.
But your generation, I think you guys are a lot more liberal.
Right.
And a lot more I think conscious of what
Can't paint with a broad brush.
Like how your you can't
So-
like how your parents
So we
were.
graduated right as soon as the recession hit. So I couldn't even find a job for 3 years.
Wow.
So then, our country's let us down for so many years that it's just pointless. It's like, why?
And you don't want to, and this is.
That's why people have to vote.
No, but but you know what happens? People do get complacent even about the voting, because they're like, what is it going to change? And you get, like you said, you get so disenchanted with the system, and you get so disenchanted, even running for office. And I address this with Nikki Freed because you can run for office, you can have the greatest desire to make change and do that. But yet the people don't go behind you. And even your own party, sometimes they go with a middle road, and they don't want to think outside the box, and they get pummeled in the state. It's very frustrating.
Part of the drone and the plan, of the authoritarian, of the authoritarianist. I mean, you have to look at history, and we've seen this happen before.
Time again, and it'll happen again. And
that's one of the most fascinating things to me about Governor DeSantis right now, to a certain extent. And he's a smart man. I think everybody acknowledges that. Why would you even want to mess with Trump right now? Why is this your time to think about running for president? Why wouldn't you say, you know what? I'm a young man. Why don't I continue to inflict my policies on Florida, okay?
Because
he can run
Yeah.
12 years.
No, he can't. He's hot right now. And so for that, that I disagree with you on that, but he's hot now. And for him, he'd be stupid not to run right now. People know his name. People know him. People are anti-COVID still.
But signing a 6-week abortion ban, I mean, to me,
I agree. But the thing is, the majority of the country, don't see it that way, or don't like, maybe the voters who vote are older in this country. That's another thing. So is it going to really affect them? No, maybe their grandchildren. Yes. Those are the voters who vote consistently. If you look at super voters, they're all over the age of 60. Gen Z, Gen Z, but they don't vote yet.
So interestingly
we
enough,
keep hoping for that Gen Z to come up. But the thing is, statistically speaking, they're the lowest vote.
Here in the state of Florida,
men. Those are the two lowest consistently.
Here in the state of Florida, as we go forward in session, okay, there actually is an election bill, this, that, whatever. It contains the first time voter has to vote in person. So the first time voter can't register for in mail, mail, this, that, whatever.
Which is one of the strongest points for the Democratic Party. The Dems really crank out the vote by mail. Democrats notoriously are lazy to go to the polls. So, and that's historic. And so even with that, it's going to make it that much more difficult. And even
so that type of voter suppression type of stuff is going to go on. They're going to do everything they can to stay in power.
And the signatures, even by vote by mail, and this is the only thing that I find odd. Like, you have to sign, the vote by mail, and if it's off even a little, they can toss it out. So it's just crazy. They can manipulate it.
Former President Trump, to me, leadership still means honesty. And leadership still means integrity. And, when you look at Biden and, call him this, call him that, but I still see a vigorous leader, quite frankly, that continues to carry forth the moral set, that I want. And, age is age, I mean, we just talked about, Bobby Tuna passing, at 80, and may his memory be a blessing. But, to me, listen, I hope to totter into the office well into my 80s, much to Patty's consternation, because I think we also have a lot to do, so to me, I don't know. I just don't know where we get that back, that feeling that our leaders, like Don said, it's just at this point, you just kind of, put your hands up and say, well, they're all crooked and they're all going to do this and they're all going to do that. But there's degrees.
To have like term limits. I don't know why this country doesn't want term limits.
That's interesting.
They do. They want, it's the money that pushes. And I'm sorry, that's both sides of the house. I'm sorry, no matter what party you belong to, they both need term limits. I don't care who it is. And then you have arguments. People are like, well, what if they're really good? Well, you know what? Too bad. They need to move on. Everybody needs to move on. There should be nobody in place of power that long.
Well, you can do that in the private sector, of course. Okay.
Work it if you truly are a public servant, which I think on initial intention, most people do go in altruistically, I have to say, but the system gets corrupted. Those envelopes get handed to you. Those lobbyists stick your kid into Harvard. I'm sorry, that should not happen. And those term limits would help that. And people say, well, that's why voting's there. No, it doesn't work that way. And it's proven. We've seen it now. It doesn't work. It needs, I'm just 100%.
They'll just make the laws to make themselves not be able
to. That's it. And they're going to just do that. They're going to make it so that, oh, no, we can't. So what's the point? You have a Nancy Pelosi, you have, what's his face, the little turtle, McDonald, whatever his name is, McDonald. And it's like, oh, come on.
I think the point is there's only what you yourself can do. So of course we can all register and vote. Further though, you can donate. Okay. You can go to rallies. People can, people do, people need to. And it just depends what kind of country you want to live in and what kind of country you want to leave to your kids. So it is overwhelming in Florida. Listen, I've been on some national calls where people have a much different attitude in different states, because quite frankly, there are progressive things going on in other states. And, that's in the cannabis world too. And, as we go forward and just, to give at least, some homage to the green room as it is, as we go forward in session, there's still critical things that we're going to have to see whether they get taken care of in these last 3 to 4 weeks of session or not. And the hemp bill is still percolating out there. Kim Rivers last night, just give a shout out to Kim. We had our doctor meeting that we're having now every week, quite frankly, during legislative season, because we're talking about the telehealth bill, weekly now as the group of doctors, because we want to try to And I know, Ruta, you watch the Florida channel. Listen, everybody, if you want to give yourself a migraine headache every day and develop your ulcer over 2 months, okay, download the Florida channel. Download the Florida channel on your phone or on your computer, and you can watch. You can watch the committees and all the Senate and listen. And when you see senators and House members literally crying tears of passion, you understand what's really going on up there. But there's a phrase they use all the time in the committee meetings when they want you to end up your comments. They say, bring it in for a landing. See, so that's a phrase.
So after 20 seconds. So you haul up to Tallahassee, which is in the middle of nowhere, Florida. And you get 20 seconds and they shut you down to bring in your, by the time you say your name, you're down 10 seconds. So they actually give you 10 seconds to bring down the plane and go ahead and land it. It's insanity.
So getting back to the comments, to bring the telehealth bill in for an appropriate landing, the doctors are continuing to meet because we absolutely want telehealth for our patients, for safety, for convenience, for all the reasons that we do, for recertification patients, of course. Not for new patients. New patients need that in-person visit for the education, for the personal touch, but thereafter. But the point is, it has to be done right. It needs to be regulated appropriately, and these things aren't done easily. So the point is, we've been meeting, and I may be back in Tallahassee next week.
For 20 seconds.
Yeah. Right. Bring it down. The hemp bill, on the other hand, is really percolating, and it's percolating heavily. Per Kim last night, she says that the governor has made it, that's where the story started. The governor has made it a priority to actually try and get this hemp, legislation through, which means that something's going to happen. Likewise, she does say that the telehealth bill came from an altruistic side of the legislature. And, I take Kim for what she says, she has her contacts up there, that they really do want to try to show the patients that they do have some positivity towards the program. She says that she's had discussions with the legislators about how to preserve medical as we go forward towards legal adult use. And, we discussed specifics last night about keeping our taxes at zero.
Okay, but listen, this is where I have an issue.
Please.
Even with Kim Rivers, and I'm sorry, I don't care who she is.
No. Listen, I'm not just, is preaching. I call her out as well. I said, listen, I want to know what you talked to the legislators about.
Like, just because she has a large.
What's her motivation to preserve medical
versus a physician's office or a large, I'm sorry, hers is a shareholder wealth in her own wealth. It's not altruistic. I'm sorry. There's no altruism there. And so, the ones who should be addressing the legislators on that shouldn't be somebody who owns a dispensary. It should be a physician. I'm sorry.
So
that's my take.
She's had her contacts.
You're representing the patients. I think those are the doctors, not a cannabis person who wants to sell more product to somebody.
Listen, she's had her contacts and her motivations from the get. And I think, she'll openly, admit to that. But my point is that and the doctors did discuss it with Kim, and quite frankly, afterwards as well. We're all looking to see if that holds true, because as we go forward, we need to preserve medical. We need to preserve the quality of the product, which is labeling and testing and consistency.
Listen to the legislators. They are conservative. And when you listen to them, they do want to protect medical. You can hear it when they speak about it. There was one woman in particular, a representative, even about like when the bill was introduced for telehealth, and then that they wanted to just do the visit once a year as opposed to every 120 days. She opposed it based on the fact of a physician speaking, Dr. Desai or something. And so he spoke out and he said, I'm sorry, for any medical doctor who's a medical doctor needs to see his patients and make sure they're okay, especially if they're new and they're looking at a medicine and it may be affecting them. They need to be seen in person by the doctor. So shout out for him for speaking, because that's the true statement. And I think the legislators are listening to that. So like I said, I think medical will be protected by the state of Florida, rightfully so, and it should be.
For sure.
Yeah.
The discussion was interesting because it did come up last night, to the extent that when legal adult use comes to Florida, whenever that is, of course, it's going to be a regulated and a heavily taxed system.
Massachusetts, it's totally.
But the regulation's interesting. You have to go state by state, and it's probably an interesting topic for another green room, Don. Get somebody that's an expert on this to really see what happens when you go legal adult use in states. What the states allow the citizens to walk out with on any given day, how they track it. Do you get 2 ounces a month? For sure. Because you're going to walk into a dispensary in the state of Florida and walk out with a pound of cannabis just because you want to buy it.
But
it's going to be expensive too.
They're all backtracking. Every state, like there's actually a lot of research and a lot of articles on that. a lot of states, including Colorado, California.
There's a balance that they're
there's a
going to look
backtrack
for.
because when they went legal use, all of a sudden they saw a lot of issues with it and they're backtracking now. So a lot of states are backtracking. So it's kind of
Issues are speculative, but what's true is true. I mean, listen, Florida is going to regulate. You know that. And that's just facts.
A good thing, though. I'm not opposed to regulation.
It's just a fact, you know. I mean, I don't think you can necessarily overuse cannabis to the vast majority of surely my patient base. But listen, regulations are just a fact in Florida. Taxes, of course, are going to be a fact in Florida.
If it's a medicine, it should be regulated.
Well, use, and that's an alcohol type of system.
And I think that I'm not going to just say, "Oh, I don't."
It's interesting. If you're having a party or something, Don, you can walk out literally with like 3 boxes of like bottles of,
but for marijuana you can. And it's
that way for a number of years. It just is,
like I said, I think it should be regulated as a medicine and for recreational. I don't think, I know the dispensaries want to sell and give as much product, but I think if it's truly medicine, there's a balance. There's a balance.
So would be with the way things are in Florida right now. There is the request for exemption that this office handles in a very conservative fashion for those patients that do need more medication, right? We follow rules. Who wouldn't?
Yeah,
well,
some don't.
Well, and listen, that's been kind of a sticking issue and point. But I think the good news about what's going on in Tallahassee this year, and what I would love to see come out of Tallahassee, and see 5 minutes left to wrap things up, is that what I like to see come out of Tallahassee is a working understanding between the doctors and the legislators, and now the OMU and the Board of Medicine and the Department of Health, that we really do at this point need a combined group, panel, working group, something where you can air out these issues and how to get things done right. Listen, it's interesting, everybody. We're still operating under emergency rules, okay? Emergency rules.
I love
now 7 years into the program, and there's no discussion about getting rid of the emergency rules, quite frankly. It just it suits their needs and fits the bill.
Very bizarre. But running as they should run the whole operation as a business, where you do, like most large corporations, you have teams that are put together. You have strategic teams. You have teams on policy. Like, they need that. They really don't have that for medical marijuana or for marijuana in general. And I think they need to come up with a commission, and they do need to have teams, and they do need strategy, and they need to come up with a business plan. They really need it, and they're slow to go on it. But I hope they get there one day. That's the only thing we can hope for. But
right. And it just amazes me. And it's one of the things that does amaze me is that over this time, I mean, I'm not the only one that goes to Tallahassee and tries to make, contacts and inroads. There are others. And between all of us, we should be able to finally, and you know what it is really, Ruta, quite frankly, and I think it's the kind of work that you do through Dr. Masulo, who's been in Tallahassee now, Dr. Rudman, of course, up there. You need contacts into the governor's office, quite frankly. I mean, that's who appoints. That's where the appointments come to the Board of Medicine. It was funny, came up with a doctor's meeting last night, like, who could do that? And I'm sitting there like this, saying, no, I will not serve. I will not be drafted. But we do. We need a doctor who knows medical cannabis at that level of the decision makers. And that's only going to come through the appropriate contacts. And that's just that's frustrating, but it is.
But that's how the game's played here. It's played like that everywhere. It is a game, and you have to get into that end game. You have to get into that circle, and to be able to have that ear, you do. It's a fact.
So the point is, watch Tallahassee, watch what's going on. If you're interested in that hemp bill, clue into that, and pay attention to our telehealth bill as well. Let's see if we can once again bring that in.
And I know things are going to be on the books. That's why they want that 6-week abortion bill on. Once it's in the books, it's on the books. And so to reverse it is extremely
consequences to that extent. And once again, referring back to Speaker Renner, and he speaks truth. He that's the power in Florida right now, and we know where it lies. So we're going to continue to come, into the office every day and do what we do to keep our patients safe,
but even
and legal and educated.
Stay active. And like here, today's new college, people are in uproar over that. And this hits home, your kids are going to college here, and, you see the changes happening, and you see rights being taken away, and even from students. And again, thankfully, new college students, they are pretty active. So they're voicing their opinions loudly. But I have a girlfriend, she already withdrew her
Yeah, they
daughter
transferred out.
transferring out. So if they want like
Time
whatever,
goes too fast.
It
Okay.
does.
And you know, when you have changes like that happen, to undo them now it's going to take,
it's going to take years. Like, so you're talking, how many years has New College even been in existence? It's been a while. So I don't
it's gonna be
remember.
interesting Tiger Bay
Oh,
today.
today is going to be very heated.
And then Adam Kinzinger is coming to the next Tiger Bay.
That should be a really good one. He's going to meet an interesting crowd because that room is heavily red. So even though he's a Republican, but I think he's going to have some criticisms hit him too.
I await the day when the Republican Party welcomes Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney back, you know, into the fold, because
who had the true core values of the Republican.
It's independent. I need both sides. You know, if I can't respect one side because I don't understand where they're coming from, it gets difficult. That's why we always avoid national politics when we deal with our state leaders right now. When I go to Tallahassee, it just doesn't. It's always about the state.
It is. The state handles the state, and the national level, it's way up there and it's totally different. But again, I think we have to always address what's happening here locally, because now, like I said, rights are just keep getting eroded. So, you know, just vote and be active and write your legislators. I mean, honestly, you don't think it has impact, but it does. If you become,
it does. They tell me when I go up there, you know, they
wheel, whatever. What's the thing? I don't even know. That's
gets the grease.
Gets the grease. Yeah. And it's true, because it does. Unless you're loud and out there, nobody knows.
It doesn't always work though. You know, up in Tennessee, of course, they have 3 of their Democratic representatives that are facing expulsion, basically because they stood up, you know, and they were out of decorum in the House. And as it is, but you know, and listen, talk about games to wrap up the green room on a positive note. Tampa Bay Rays undefeated so far this year. My plucky Cleveland Guardians went out west. And that's why I look so tired, everybody. They were on the West Coast. Games don't start till 9:40. I'm asleep by 9:30 these days. So I know I'm gonna have my normal bed. Yeah, have my normal beauty rest. Now listen, Baker Mayfield's gonna be the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Bucks coming into this.
I don't know anybody.
He was the former Cleveland Browns quarterback, first round draft pick, washed out of Cleveland. But it's a classic Cleveland story. But I get to watch him down here in Tampa.
So be nice.
Oh, thank God for cannabis, you know, for a lot of different reasons. Listen, everybody. So next week in the green room, we may have a guest, we may not. If we do, it'll be a big one, because if we don't, we got way too much to talk about. But there are certain people we got to have in. But after session, it'll be interesting because I'm storing up all these.
Get all those people in.
Peter Grinspoon, for example, who's got a book coming out on 420. That's Dr. Lester Grinspoon's son. He's already agreed to be with us on the 27th of April, and I got a couple other future bookings. So
awesome.
As time goes by.
Yes, it's time.
Sounds like a soap opera. See you next week, everybody.